I haven't been this frustrated with a movie in a long time, because I wanted to like it so much, and at times I really did. But then it just managed to let me down over and over again. I mean, let's take a step back here. Neil Jordan directed this movie, and he's mostly known for stuff he did in the 90s, like The Crying Game or Interview with a Vampire. And the first thing I noticed about this movie was the look and feel. It didn't look and feel like most modern movies, but not in a bad way. It just had this certain aesthetic to it that you don't see a lot these days. It wasn't lit like most movies, but it was well lit. And I looked up the cinematographer, Seamus McGarvey, who's apparently done a lot of movies I've liked. So he's a very versatile and competent guy, and I really liked what he did here. You could also tell that Neil Jordan knew what he was doing. The direction wasn't flashy or anything, but just very robust. It didn't draw attention to itself, but it was very competently handled. So off to a good start. I also like Chloe Grace Moretz, and I'm a recent fan of Isabella Huppert too, who I just happened to see in a Paul Verhoeven movie called Elle. So that's all great, but pretty soon the cracks started to show, mainly in the dialogue, and I wasn't in love with the score either. But the dialogue specifically just felt a bit stiff. It didn't feel natural to me, which probably wouldn't have been an issue if that was the only issue, but it's not. So at this point we need to take a quick look at the story. It's essentially about this young woman living in New York, who through happenstance meets this older woman, and they become friends. However, there's more to it, and that's when the movie starts to fall apart. Because about 20 minutes into the movie it takes a turn, and the real plot starts to open up. And the tone shifts dramatically too into this horror thriller thing. And incidentally, here's also where the frustration kicks in. Because you know what? Some of that stuff works. Some of it really well too. But some of it just doesn't, and the whole thing just comes across as almost comedic at times. And it just keeps shifting tone too, between this horror thriller vibe and something a lot more lighthearted. It can't stick to one thing and becomes this inconsistent tonal mess. And it actually reminded me a lot of the recent movie Serenity in that way too. Except I found that one to be entertaining and this one just frustrating. And then I have to account for the fact that I really liked Isabella Huppert in this. She does a fantastic job, so that then sways me toward wanting to like the movie again. And honestly, I don't think the core story here is bad at all. I think it works perfectly well, had it been handled differently. But then the movie goes and does something I really didn't like. And I don't know how to say this without giving anything away. But there's a sequence I thought was real, but turns out it's not. It's essentially a dream sequence, which I didn't like, but it's fine. Except psych, no it's not. It was actually real all along. Like, what? So now I can't trust anything it's doing, which means I stopped caring. Because why get invested in what's going on screen, if it's gonna turn out that what I just saw didn't actually even happen? So at this point I'm just royally frustrated, and honestly I gave up. And I'm kinda glad I did, because the writing got a lot sloppier after that too. And the list of things I didn't like about it just kept growing. But I do think there's a good enough story in there, buried beneath it all. And I liked the main performances, and I thought the movie looked good too. But the tone, it just flip-flopped all over the place and kinda ruined it. And I honestly think with just different editing, this could have been a lot better. Because I don't think the direction was bad and the script was okay. But I think the way they put together the raw footage was the problem. Because most of the tone issues come down to editing choices. And yeah, this just turned out to be a bit of a mess, but would I recommend it? No, not really, so you can probably skip it. Or don't. I'm not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to get myself one of those fancy loft apartments. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.